What do you think of the creature design?
Pass.
The Holler Kings, where the horror's Southern fried.
Hello, I'm Craig.
And I'm Adam.
We're the Holler Kings.
The motherfucking Holler Kings.
Exploring Southern horror.
That's what we do, baby.
Am I the baby?
Yes. No.
Okay. Today on the Holler Kings, we are going to be discussing a little film called The Legend of Boggy Creek.
The Legend of Boggy Creek tells it like it happened. Through the eyes of the big Technoscope cameras, you will see wildlife living with nature, a treat you will not soon forget. This is the setting for the new motion picture, Legend of Boggy Creek, filmed entirely on location around Fouke, Arkansas. It is the true story of the Fouke monster. This motion picture is being acclaimed by the motion picture industry as a strong contender for that industry's top award, the Academy. The Legend of Boggy Creek, color by Technicolor, is a P&L film production presentation.
Oh, shit, boy.
That's right. It's from 1972.
Yes.
I brought this to the table. And
Explain yourself.
Here is my explanation. Mm-hmm. I feel like whenever we pick something like Glorious or Unhinged, that maybe
Very
doesn't,
Southern horror movies.
that maybe doesn't have that much Southernness, I have to push back and pick something that is like slam dunk, traditional Southern horror. And you can't get much more Southern horror than this. This is...
Cannot argue with that point.
It is shot in Arkansas in the early 70s, populated with a cast of unknowns that are locals from Arkansas. Just top to bottom is Southern.
Even the camera has a country accent.
The narrator has kind of like that homespun Southern kind of charm, I guess.
Just that kind of lackadaisical, like we're sitting on the porch. Well, let me tell you a story.
And
We're going to sit here all day.
this is kind of a prototype of a mockumentary. It's kind of an early example of a film that's presented as though it's real. It's presented like it's a documentary, and it has reenactments all through it. So it kind of becomes what is transmorphed into mockumentary style horror and comedies. To include most of our sitcoms now are basically mockumentary style. I'm going to present you with the ordeal of give me a basic premise. What's the basic synopsis of this film?
This is basically, like you said, kind of a mockumentary chronicling over a span of years, perhaps even decades, of stories, kind of like that whole like urban legend style of like storytelling over generations of a man beast creature in the wilds of is it Fouke, Arkansas?
Yeah.
The wild man of like Fouke, Arkansas.
Yeah.
And that's basically right on the precipice of Texarkana.
Oh, yes. They go into great detail about exactly where this is located. They really try to authenticate it.
Which has emphasis given that this is Charles, is it B. Pierce?
Yes.
Yeah, Charles B. Pierce, who did The Town That Dreaded Sundown.
Along with the writer, who's Earl E. Smith. So this duo collaborated on both of those, which are hallmarks of 70s Southern horror. The Town That Dreaded Sundown does the exact same thing, where it's a narrator and it's kind of presented as a pseudo-documentary type of situation. So much so that when I was watching this movie, The Legend of Boggy Creek, I started to get confused because about halfway through the movie, there's a sequence where it's just one woman kind of being terrorized by this Bigfoot type monster. She keeps thinking it's outside and she's freaking out. And I was like, I feel like I've seen this before. And I realized there's a very similar scene in The House That Dreaded Sundown.
The Town.
I said that earlier too. The Town That Dreaded Sundown. There's a very similar scene where the actress that played Marianne in Gilligan's Island is kind of alone in a house and she's you know freaking out. It's a very similar build up or whatever. Where there were like moments where I was like, I feel like I've seen this, and then I looked it up and I was like, oh, okay. It's just he used the same template basically to run with this other idea.
He also did the Victors. Have you seen that?
No,
I haven't either. But I mean, it's got a good cast. It's got like Vic Morrow in it, and Michael Parks, Jessica
Lange?
No, Suspiria.
I'm not going to be able to help you there.
I can't remember her last name. Anyways, but it's got a pretty good cast to it, and it's one of those ones that was kind of lost for a little while, and then it ended up coming out. I think Scream Factory released it. I think they did a solo release, but at one point they included it with like their Blu-ray of The Town That Dreaded Sundown.
Well, they had a little bit of mainstream success because I think on their IMDb it mentioned Enforcer, like one of the Dirty Harry movies. I think they, kind of dipped their toes in actual Hollywood production and everything.
Right.
And these movies were pretty big successes comparable to their budget, the amount of money they put into it versus what they made. I'm pretty sure exclusively on drive-in movies, playing those circuits and everything in the South and, more fringe areas at the time. But they made a lot of bank and got a lot of attention. And this is one of those movies I feel like it's always been in the ether, but I've never gotten around to actually watching. Like I feel like I've always kind of heard of it.
Yeah.
And the poster art is really interesting because it kind of has like a silhouetted creature, and it does jump out because it's PG. And so I kind of didn't know what I was in store for, but having it kind of play out and roll out in front of me, I guess for one thing, I apologize for bringing this to the table. Even though it's kind of like, what's the one, 10,000 Maniacs?
2000.
It's like 2000 Maniacs in the sense that it is specific to this podcast. So I feel like we have to touch it at some point. Mm-hmm. But it was pretty rough. It was a pretty rough watch. Even knowing that these are unknowns, these are amateur filmmakers, indie filmmakers of the era when it was really hard to do this sort of thing.
Right.
And some of the photography is very beautiful. Like you can tell this person cares about where he's from. And
it's clear on that one.
But that's the thing. There is so much padding in this movie of just scenery.
This movie is a slog on. This is basically a nature documentary.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
That's basically what it is. And I'm like you. This is one that's been a blind spot. I've always been familiar with it. It's kind of notorious as being like one of the best Bigfoot movies.
Right.
And so, which is not saying much because there's not many good Bigfoot movies. This one included. So, yeah, it's just one of those that kind of always kind of like passed me by, but it was one I've always wanted to check out. And yeah, man, early on, it was interesting because I had no idea it was like the mockumentary thing.
Right.
I thought this was just a movie. That aspect of it was interesting, and the execution of it is the problem. It's an interesting premise to have this sort of. I mean, not nowadays because there's so many like documentaries about ghosts and cryptids and all this stuff, but especially in 1972, this was way ahead of its time in that element. But its execution was rough. It was really bad.
Well, and it kind of gets into Ed Wood territory in some cases where it's like there's really only 20 or 30 minutes of story here, and the rest of it is padding of kind of like stock footage style. I mean, I think he actually shot everything, but it's just a lot of filler of people you have a narrator that kind of like connects it all, and they kind of describe like, well, all the townspeople got together with their hounds, and they decided to try to track this animal after it terrorized people. Blah, blah.
Which, how all these hounds are supposed to have the scent of this creature when they have no way to give the scent to them?
Right.
Because I'm not an expert on tracking, but in every movie I've seen, to get the scent, they have some piece of clothing or some article that the person had so the dogs can get the scent to chase them. They don't have any element of this man, bear, pig creature that they can, but yet the dogs are still tracking them. But,
it's a little esoteric. And
I interrupted you. What were you saying?
Well, listen, these are famous hunting dogs from Tennessee.
They apparently are.
He says it like 5 times.
Were those owners ashamed when those dogs tucked tail and ran away?
I mean, it's a really odd movie because over and over again it gets sentimental, and it really tries to kind of like push in this idea that nature is a good thing and overdeveloping is a bad thing. Like, I feel like that's like a minor thread through this, is that, maybe a generation has gone by and this guy's realizing, by the 70s, things are changing and this lifestyle is going away. Mm-hmm. So there's kind of an undercurrent of sentimentality. But at the same time, you're expecting us to, I guess, be scared of this Bigfoot monster. Like, it's like the narrator implies that this Bigfoot creature is lonely, and maybe that's why it's like attacking women that are alone. Like, there's kind of an under thread of maybe there's like a threat of like him kidnapping these women or something. Maybe that's why he's bothering them. I don't know.
And this really speaks to the human condition, because it's like, what's that thing over there? Oh, I don't know. Is it dangerous? I don't think so. Is it going to come after us? No. Is it different than us? Yeah. Let's fucking kill it.
There is a definite threat of that.
Like, this thing does nothing but
walk
exist.
Around.
And they're like, we got to hunt that thing down and shoot it.
There's all right. On site, people freak out and start getting guns and ammunition. There's and that's kind of the repetitive nature of this. It's basically setting up a group of people, setting up where they live in this location. They're isolated, and the thing comes by and scares them. And how do they react to it? They almost all react pretty similar. Yeah. They try to get guns, they try to shoot it, and nothing happens. I do think the final sequence sort of escalates it to a point where the monster actually interacts with them.
I'd be ready to attack people if every time I came around they're shooting at me and shit. I'd be like, fuck you.
Yeah.
I'm going to attack you for once.
Well, that's like one of the best sequences, I think, is, well,
what's the character's name?
I don't remember.
It's like forgotten. Bobby or something like that. It's a super generic, like, South name. Boy, does he know how to bust through a goddamn door. He comes crashing through that door. And they're like, and he went through a spell after, what he went through. I'm like, no, bro. It wasn't him being attacked. He just busted through a wooden door.
Well, that's what, the final group, it's like several couples in this house together. And there's a part where they're spooked, but then they kind of settle down and decide, they need to sleep or whatever. And this one character is just randomly like, I got to use a bathroom. Goes into the bathroom and he's like taking down his pants. And then that's when like the monster's, arm reaches through the bathroom and he like stumbles out like, oh my God, it's here. All that stuff. Really funny stuff. And I tried really hard watching this to get into the mindset of a young person that encountered this movie in the 70s.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that's the only way this kind of captures someone's like imagination or whatever, is like, before you had really polished movies.
Right.
This could be kind of like, wow, like they made a movie in a place where I live, and maybe this thing is out there somewhere. Like, I can kind of see that kind of like capturing a young person's imagination, but man, it's
because I've read like comments and stuff like this, like watching like stuff about it on YouTube and everything.
Right.
And comments of people saying like, oh, I remember watching this. I was like 11 years old and I saw it in the theaters or the drive in or whatever, and man, it was terrifying. I'm like, really? Or there was one that was something like, I can't believe this is only PG for how violent it was. I was like, what violence?
Yeah, there's no violence in this thing.
What are you?
Yeah.
Did we watch the same movie?
Right.
Did I watch the like rated cut and you watched like the unrated or something? Because it was. But yeah, it's to that point of like, this is like a time capsule, and I'm sure it was pretty terrifying back in the day when it first came out. I'm pretty sure, because I mean, this was even before. I mean, this was like before Texas Chainsaw Massacre and all that. So I'm pretty sure I could imagine it having an impact. But good, it does not translate to today.
I was I was rooting for it, and then about 30 minutes in, there's like a musical interlude where just like a song starts up, and it's just like, oh, in the valley, like that type of thing. And I'm just like, what? It's like a folksy pseudo country song.
Hey, Travis Crabtree, wait a minute for me. Let's go back in the bottom, back where the fish are biting.
And it goes on for quite a while, just showing scenery of the swamp land.
They played the full version of the song, and I'm pretty sure it was like the extended cut. They play the whole entire song.
Yeah.
It's the hardest thing. It's so hard to like get invested in it because it's so disjointed. You don't know. You're hardly introduced to any of the characters. The only characters we ever get any sort of like names of, I mean, we get names of people, but to where we actually kind of know, because a lot of the characters we see, they're really not even speaking.
Right.
It's just the couples at the end is kind of the only like story threads we actually get. Other than that, it's just like this disjointed where we're talking to this person and then this person is talking and they're not even talking. We're just hearing narration while they're walking around, and then there's another one. And this is supposed to take place over like years and years. So I don't know, when is this story taking place and when is their story taking place? It's there is no through line or thread of any type of like, even though there's a ton of narration, it's not saying anything really.
Right. It's more just describing what you're watching.
Yeah,
so.
it's wholly disjointed to the point of we start off this movie with what we assume is going to be our lead, this little boy.
Oh, yeah.
Running through, across fields and through weeds, and weeds that are taller than him. I'm like, boy, you're going to get fucking covered in ticks. Go around. And then after this one scene, we don't get this little boy anymore. Like his story. I mean, we get him through the because it's the narrator.
Yeah.
But we don't get any. Like he talks about, he goes into a panic, goes to this little like general store restaurant type thing, with all these old men sitting around just hanging out, which is very true to the South. I remember me and a buddy when we used to work at this factory. We used to work night shift, and we get off in the morning. And we'd always go to like, there's a couple like mom and pop restaurants, or we'd go to like maybe Hardee's or something. And inevitably, whichever one we went to in the morning, there's a group of like 5 or 6 old men just sitting around, and they hang out for hours just talking. I'm like, God damn, retirement looks good.
Well, that's what my dad's dad, he had like a old school stove in his garage. And somehow that became a hangout spot.
Really?
Especially in the winter. Like you would go and visit him, and he would just have like these people I'd never seen before in my life just hanging out, you know, shooting the shit. Yeah, it's a very... I assume that happens other places, but it feels very southern.
Yeah, it definitely does. That's how it starts off, and the old dude just kind of writes him off and goes like, your mom's crazy, women and their, hormones or whatever. he just writes it off and is like, there's no wild man out there. And so the boy runs back, and that's kind of all we get of that storyline. Like, he is our narrator, but nothing more about his story, about what happened to him. And
the sense of urgency that they seem to have in that moment is dissipated immediately.
For sure.
Never has that again.
Yeah. That And it starts, like I said, it starts out pretty strong with that. And then
I agree. Yeah. At first I thought, I was like, oh my God, I picked like something really interesting, because I thought the opening sequence was actually pretty strong.
Yeah, it really was. And then we just completely just throw that storyline away.
Yeah.
And then it becomes this weird mockumentary that has no story elements.
What do you think of the creature design?
Pass. I feel, to be fair, especially for the time,
right?
It's so draped in like shadows and like darkness and everything. It's hard to get a good grasp on what it looks like. There are a few scenes that are in the daytime, but even those that are kind of far away, so you can't get a good grasp. You don't get anything close up or anything, that part of it's kind of cool and gives it a little mystery, but it still doesn't. It just looks like someone covered in like a bunch of furs or something.
Yeah,
sort of.
I agree that there's sometimes where the lighting and then just they shoot a lot of this during, I guess, what they call the martini hour, or like it's like setting sun or the sun just rising. They seem to try to cherry pick their outdoor scenes that way, so it's very beautiful sometimes. But the creature himself is obfuscated for the most part. Like you very rarely see it head on, and when you do, it's like from a distance. Very, very much so in like supposed Sasquatch footage that people have, so they're kind of following that motif or whatever. So that's very effective. Every now and then you get maybe a little too much, because it's clear that it's some kind of like gorilla outfit, and maybe they have like a woman's wig for the top to kind of cover up the face a little bit, because sometimes it looked like a grunge rocker to me occasionally, like just a slouching, depressed dude with long hair walking through the forest. And
why does everybody keep trying to attack me?
And I couldn't help but notice, I mean, again, it's almost mean to pick on this movie. In the end of the film, when the creature is more confrontational and you see him a little bit more, like it's clear that it's a gorilla costume, and they didn't even bother to like black out the eyes of the person underneath it. So it's like a Caucasian person, and you can just tell, like you can just see through the eye slits of the mask that there's like just a regular human underneath it. And it's a little glaring in a couple of moments in the film.
And that's also the cruelty of, HD and all that.
Sure,
and
yeah. And being able to see it more than once, because I'm sure they thought this would be a drive-in. And
you watch a muddy print of it at a drive-in in 72, it's like, holy shit. But you get your, 4K Blu-ray of it where it's being cleaned up and pristine, and you're like, wow.
Well, no, that's what I noticed. Even the version I watched, I rented it streaming. It had a copyright of 2018 on it, where they had done a recent restoration of it. So I can only imagine what it looked like prior to that.
I can imagine it looking, because I remember seeing like The Town That Dreaded Sundown on VHS, and it being like, what? What am I looking? Is that? I think that's a trombone, or I don't know.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So I could definitely see how this would have been a rough one as far as like all that goes. There was one moment like that where it's so tonally off the wall, because these kids run into their mom and they're like, Mama, there's a monster out there. She's like, oh, there's no monster. And they're like, no, there's something out there. We got to get Paul. Y'all don't wake up your Paul. Come on now. We'll go see where this monster is. And then it cuts to them outside, and there's like this sweet saccharine music playing, and they're like frolicking through the fields. And they're like, we got to go see the monster. I'm like, y'all made it seem like terrifying and urgent. It was so weird.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
But, yeah, that was one of the only, that and him busting through the door. I was like, that was so hilarious. I'm like, you are defeating the purpose. You're trying to, twice already, that door has saved y'all from this creature getting in, and you're just like, fuck this door. I don't need it. Just bust through it. But yeah, other than that, man, there was just, like you said earlier, there was just so much filler in this. There's so many roving shots of nature, or even like static or like panning shots. And Arkansas is beautiful, but god damn, I don't need all this.
There was a part of me that felt a little melancholy that, this is an era that's just totally gone forever. I mean, like, the idea that someone can make a movie like this anymore is just out the window. I mean, like, this was a very specific time, and there's something that I did like about the innocence of it. Again, I think of Ed Wood. I have a guy just going, like, all we need is an ape suit and, like, 20 people willing to be on camera, and we can make a movie, and like, I'll record a couple of schmaltzy songs to kind of, like, throw in, to kind of give it some weight or whatever. But man, it's just so rough to watch that even that sentimental side of me just kind of, my brain
goes to sleep.
Yeah, my brain kind of kicks in and goes, like, you shouldn't be manipulated by this, like. I mean, it's a miracle that this movie exists. Like, it should, for all purposes, this should be a lost film. Yeah. It just, sure, for whatever reason, it captured enough people's imagination where I can only imagine people a few years older than me, kids that grew up in the 70s and stuff like that. This is means something to them, and that's why it's still in the ether.
For sure.
Because I mean, this should just be.
This should be, yeah.
I mean, it has sequels and everything.
Yeah. I will say I am interested to see the sequel, because this was a unique thing with, like, being an early mockumentary and all that.
That's true.
And even though it was rough to get through in a lot of instances, I feel like it was ahead of its time enough that. And I like The Town That Dreaded Sundown, that I'd be interested in watching the sequel. I'll never watch this again, but I'd be interested in watching the sequel.
Yeah. Well, I think at some point we'll definitely do The Town That Dreaded Sundown.
Oh, for sure. That's
quintessential. But
Jessica Harper
is
in The Victor. She's the one that was in Suspiria.
Gotcha.
Boom.
You did it.
Brought it back around.
You did it. Well, let's stick the landing here. I feel like we said pretty much all we need to say about this. So
yeah, I don't think I have anything else to add.
Would you recommend it, and what would you rate it?
I don't think I can recommend this.
Yeah.
If you're a lover of, like, those, like, nature shows or, like, anything along those lines, maybe you could get something out of this. It's a unique time capsule. But like you said, for lots of reasons, this couldn't be. I mean, it could be made today, but nobody would notice it.
Right.
This came out at the right time. But unless you can handle nature documentaries, or you're just an avid, like, cryptid Bigfoot fan, you're not going to get anything out of this. Mm-hmm. I couldn't see. I just couldn't. No, I can't. I can't in good conscience recommend this.
What's your letter grade?
I hate to even do it to it, because it's like, it feels like punching down just because this movie's so old and so of its time. But just being honest, I'd probably give it a D.
Yeah.
This just did nothing for me.
I think that's fair. I mean, like, the brass tacks is this, it's a slog to get through. It's not super entertaining really ever. I mean, there's, like, probably 5 minutes that are genuinely entertaining in this whole thing. But you have to give it credit, again, for the mockumentary style that was,
basically non-existent.
Yeah, I mean, pretty rare at the time, I would say, and maybe one of the most mainstream examples of it, the earliest mainstream examples, maybe, that managed to cross over, I guess, to mainstream audiences. So for that, it's pretty innovative. And like you said, it is a great time capsule if you're interested in, like, Southern culture and you want to see kind of what people looked like early 70s playing like it's the 50s. I mean, it's kind of a weird thing going on there, but yeah, I'm like you. I can't really recommend it. I mean, you'd have to be a real aficionado of this subgenre of Southern horror.
Yeah, you really have to want to see something like this.
But
if you're even just kind of general, like, I might watch it, don't.
Yeah, I mean, major hat tip for some of the innovations and just the grit and determination to make a movie in this era.
Movie had to walk, so found footage could run.
For sure. No, absolutely. I mean, like, I feel like we're not being facetious when we say that. I mean, it's so major hat tip, but I agree. I think I'm also going to give it a D. Yeah. So not damning, but just, you have to be a student to want to watch this, I think. So the Holler Kings do not recommend, and we give it a D.
There it is.
The Legend of Boggy Creek.
Back where the fish are biting, where all the world's inviting, and nobody sees the flowers bloom but me.
On every episode of the Holler Kings, we like to do a segment called Holler at Your Boys.
Holler at your boys, y'all.
It's true. This is where we talk about open subjects. And I got this thing in my head where occasionally we would talk about years of horror. In the previous episode, we talked about the year 1989. Mm-hmm. And what's the year we're going to talk about today, Adam?
We're going to talk about the glorious year of 2013.
Going back a decade.
Yeah. I planned that. That was on purpose.
This was your choice? Why'd you pick 2013?
I don't. It just popped in my head. I was like, I wanted to do something a little bit newer, we did 89. So I was like, well, let's go more modern, because I feel like there's always this contention that can come on from horror fans where like, oh, nothing after 1989 is any good or something. So I want to point out that there are bad movies and every year there are good movies in every year. So I just want to point that out. And I don't know what made me settle on 2013. It just popped in my head, so I went with it.
Cool. Well, we are going to be doing a top 5 for this year.
Sir,
and if we happen to kind of explain the basic rules of these lists.
Yes. The way we kind of do it is I steal from Colors of the Dark podcast, and basically we go through from how we're doing top 5. So we'll go from 5 to 1 being our favorite. And if for some reason one of mine is, at this number, but it's on down closer to number 1 on yours, we hold off on discussing it till we get to yours.
Yeah.
So, yeah, basically, if that made any sense.
No,
I
I
feel
think
like I kind of floundered that.
Pshaw. So why don't you start us off? What's your number 5 for 2013?
My number 5 is Chucky's Back, Baby. Curse of Chucky.
Oh, yeah. Good pull.
Yeah. This is one that I thought, for the ups and downs of this franchise, Don Mancini has really took a foothold of like trying to do something different with everyone. You would think, especially after like Seed of Chucky, which personally I love Seed of Chucky, but you would think after Seed of Chucky, oh, there's no going back. And to be able to reconstruct the series and bring it back to basically the original, making it like a serious horror movie and trying to make it creepy and everything, and bring in is it Fiona Dorff? Brad
right.
Dourif's daughter,
Yeah.
into the mix, and having her play like the main character and all that. I was really impressed with it, and they kind of simplified the location. It's just set in this creepy house and everything.
You went back to basics.
Yeah, it did. I think you had to, after Seed of Chucky, you had to kind of clear. Again, I fucking love Seed of Chucky, but it's crazy.
It's high
pretty,
concept in a way. Yeah.
And so just to, kind of clear the palette and be like, let's kind of see what we can do again. I thought it was really well done.
I remember that was a big surprise to me because I thought for some reason I had it in my head when I was going to watch it that it was a reboot.
Yeah, it almost feels like it.
Yeah, like I thought it was like marketed almost that way, as though it's kind of like starting over or whatever. But then as it plays out, you realize like, oh no, this is an actual sequel. It actually fits in with the other movies. Yeah. That's what's really special about the Chucky series. Aside from the remake in 2019, it's a through line. It's almost like classic Universal monsters where you can, even though the continuity is a little sketchy here and there, it's kind of like you could really just watch it as, from start to finish as like one big story. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. Especially I haven't seen the show, so I don't know if it follows as well.
It does.
Oh,
it
does
does.
it? Okay, cool.
They keep the same continuity and stuff.
That's awesome.
Great choice. My number 5 is a little film called Tusk.
Oh.
That's not on your list, is it?
No.
Okay.
I forgot that it came out in that year.
Yeah.
Hi guys, this is Craig here. Tusk came out in September of 2014, so I am very wrong for adding it to this list. Spoiler, pretty much every movie I pick is from the wrong year, and not from 2013.
What a great fucking choice.
Oh, well, thank you.
I love that movie.
Yeah, well,
hell yeah.
And it's kind of like Kevin Smith is one of those touchy subjects, I feel like, for someone my age, because I saw Clerks at like the perfect time as a very young teenager, and it was like a very big deal to me. And you've probably heard people my age, people in their 40s talking about like, what a big deal that movie was and how it basically taught you the idea that anyone can make a movie, and for better or worse. But Kevin Smith has kind of had like an up and down career and a lot of hits and misses. But I thought the era where he did Red State and Tusk was really interesting, where he was really trying to do something different, and it was actually effective. Like he did a good job, and I miss that Kevin Smith. I wish he could maybe the door is kind of finally closed on the J.M.'s Silent Bob stuff, where he can't really retread as much, because his last two movies feel like definitive endings for that.
Have you seen Clerks 3?
I did.
Did you? I haven't watched it yet. Did you like it though?
I pulled the trigger. I felt like I had to. It did not work for me.
You didn't like it?
No.
Really?
The comedy was really rough and sad, and then like the manipulation to try to make you feel something because you have history with these characters is so hollow that it just fell flat on both levels. Yeah. I was really disappointed, and I always go into his Kevin Smith movie hoping he kind of like comes out on top. I'm rooting for the guy, and it really didn't work. I thought it, and I've read a lot of people that really enjoyed it. So maybe it's just kind of a personal thing.
I've heard mixed things on it. I've heard some people really like it, and some people are like, that was kind of bad.
Yeah, I mean,
I got it. I need to watch it. I just haven't had a chance to yet. I'm excited to watch it, but I've always been an unapologetic Kevin Smith fan. I love all this stuff, even his stuff that doesn't quite hit as well. Like, I mean, I even for what it is, and for being something you could just have fun and watch with like the kids and stuff. Like I even like Yoga Hosers, which I know is kind of lambasted as one of his worst. For everything it's doing, it's just this like goofy, silly movie with like bratwurst Nazis and shit. I mean, it's just batshit all over the place. I always love that type of stuff. So I even liked the reboot. I will admit, the first time I watched it, I was like, that's rough. But I watched it like a year or two later, and I really liked it the second time. I don't know what hit differently for me.
Well, I think Reboot wasn't trying to be anything other than literally what it was.
No, it's very much trying to be what it is.
Kind of like lowbrow, just fun humor or whatever, and a lot of referential humor. But that's the thing, is like, I feel like that I can forgive, whereas Clerks 3... it tries really hard to be important or like sentimental, and I just feel like it's hollow. Yeah.
There was a bit of that in Clerks 2. Did you like Clerks 2?
I actually kind of liked Clerks 2.
Really?
Yeah.
See, I love Clerks 2.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. Well, I'm reserved. We'll see how I like it, but I'm excited for it. But anyways, back to Tusk.
Tusk was it's one of those things where it helps that I had a history of Kevin Smith, and I was used to, his kind of comedy and everything. So it was kind of cool to see him delve into like this absurd premise that involves like body horror. It gave Justin Long a chance to kind of like stretch a little bit and He's
I don't know. I think he was pretty cramped in that suit.
but he got to kind of like play this guy in this situation that was just so incredulous, and Michael Parks is great in it. I mean, it's just really fun performances.
I love seeing Justin Long play assholes.
Right.
It's so much, and he can't help but be charming and funny. He's just such a likable guy that even as an asshole, you're like, oh, you need to stop that, but you entertain me. I've loved Justin Long. I really like him as this character in this. Well, and like you said, Michael Parks, who is in
Red State.
Well, yes.
Oh, the intruder?
Victor.
Victor, yeah.
The Victor. So, yeah, and even in Red State, like, gives such powerful performance. He is such a good actor. And he's just chewing it up in this movie. And not like in a over-the-top way, really. I mean, he's just really good in it.
And the premise, just in case you haven't heard of this movie, I mean, the idea...
Walrus, yes, baby.
This man wants to, like, essentially transform someone into a walrus for nefarious purposes. So he wants to take a human being and slowly make them
into
a walrus.
This walrus.
Yeah. And there's a lot of backstory to it, and it culminates in like one of the most bizarre scenes you've probably ever seen committed to film. I mean, this some weird stuff. And this movie has one of the most strange yet effective punch-out endings I've ever seen. And I just remember I went to the theater and saw this, and I think there was like one other guy in the theater, and like I remember an audible like from the guy that was like nearby, like where he was just like just really taken by it. And I mean, it's definitely weird and it's way out there, but I love swinging for the fences, so I had to include it. So.
Yeah, Johnny Depp is awesome in it.
Oh, I forgot about that, actually. Yeah. There's
playing the detective sort of character. Now, have you heard the rumors of a Tusk 2?
No.
Yeah. I don't know how... Well, it's not really a rumor. Kevin Smith said it. But, there was something recently, some Q&A or something he was doing, and he talked about how he's thinking about doing a Tusk 2.
Well, I'd like to see him dabble back more into horror and this weird stuff like that. Yeah.
But we fucking need Moose Jaws already.
He's talked about that for years.
Yeah, I don't know what the deal with that is. I don't know if with the creature design of having a moose and everything and make it effective maybe is just be too much money or
too
something.
Expensive, yeah.
I don't know, but that's one I've really been looking.
They're scary animals,
hopeful
for sure.
For yes, but yeah.
All right, give me
choice, great fucking choice.
Thank you, sir.
My number 4. I mean, you could argue that it's kind of a cheat, but I still went with it. It's Your Next.
Don't miss the freshest horror movie in decades. Starring this house,
I think someone's upstairs.
this wolf,
They've been watching us for days.
this cat,
This wasn't a random attack.
this sheep,
Why would anybody do this?
and this girl.
Grab anything that might make a good weapon.
You're next.
I've never seen you act like this before.
Well, it's a unique situation.
Star in theaters August 23rd.
Technically shot earlier and was delayed, but it was released to the public in 2013.
Really? Are you sure?
Yeah.
I could have sworn I saw that in 2011.
No, I mean, because it was, unless you saw like maybe some like limited screening somewhere, it was not released because it was shelved for quite a few years.
It's weird that's an era where between 2010 or 2009 and 2013, I lived in Los Angeles and New York.
So I guess
there is a chance
seen,
because I could have sworn I saw that back in the day in the theater.
You quite possibly could have seen it living in those areas. You could have seen a limited early screening of it, but
regardless, I totally accept it. So why is it included?
I'm a huge fan of home invasion movies, and I think this has a really cool twist on it, which I won't get into just in case someone hasn't seen it. This feels almost like, I mean, I guess it's not, it almost feels like a Thanksgiving set movie because it's this family getting together for, dinner, and I can't remember if there's any holiday involved, but I don't think there is, but it almost feels like it.
I could see that, yeah.
But yeah, I just really love that kind of home invasion is always the subgenre that really piques my interest. And when it's done right, it just, I eat it all up. I love it. And you have a great protagonist, final girl, and Aaron, and you have all these great performances with like A.J. Bowen. I love him. He's so good in it. And Barbara Crampton. This was like her like return to form, and like like her coming back to the genre that has produced so much now that she's like this fantastic producer and still acting in lots of fantastic things, and was a producer on Glorious, which we covered. Yeah. So yeah, this was kind of her like call back to the genre, and you know, this was like the first kind of like big thing from Adam Wingard and Simon Barrett after, you know, because they had done other stuff, but it was very like limited, low budget stuff, and this was the first thing that kind of hit. Whereas, you know, right before they did the Guest, I think they did the Guest right after this, and then right into Blair Witch, and now he's doing fucking Godzilla versus Kong and shit. But yeah, it's just this simple like hit the ground running home invasion survival movie, and I just love that aspect of it. I
remember at the time too. I like Ty West a lot now, but I remember at the time I kind of thought he was like a little bit, you know, elitist or whatever. Right. So like his scene in there, I always thought was really hilarious. You know, because he has like the fashion scarf and everything. He looks very of that time, of a elitist hipster type guy. Yeah, and, for sure. I almost don't know if that's like him lampooning that idea or if he just literally showed up looking like that and they ran with it. I don't really know anymore. But yeah, I always loved that he's one of the first offerings. Yeah, first people get offed or whatever.
First to bite it.
Yeah, great pick. I love that movie too. It would have made my list if I had thought of it in the context of being a 2013 movie. Yeah, for sure. So great pick. My number 4, and this was featured on episode 7 of the Half-Ass Horrorcast.
Oh shit!
Going back would be Starry Eyes.
Was that 2013? That 2013?
Hi guys, Craig here. Once again, I'm incorrect. Starry Eyes was released in November of 2014. My apologies.
Damn.
But it might be another case where the general public, because we didn't see it until 2015, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. But on IMDb, it's listed as 2013. Yeah.
Fuck. That's 2 now that would have totally had been in a running for. No, those totally would have been Tusk and Starry Eyes, both fantastic choices that would have made my job of picking my list that much harder because I love both of those movies so much. But I didn't even realize that they came out in 2013.
But feel free to go back and listen to a deep dive on Starry Eyes. But
yeah, it's a good episode.
Yeah, so it was a cool movie where it just it kind of put a few people on my map that I've kind of followed since. Yeah, you know, the filmmakers and the main actor and everything.
Yeah, played by what's her name, Alex Esso or something like that. Yeah,
but yeah, we mentioned them on Pet Sematary, the same filmmakers that did Starry Eyes. Just a really wild ride, great body horror, great slasher moments, and just like a cool allure of like, you know, the Hollywood lifestyle and what it takes to make it. And, you know, I think they're exploring similar themes with X, you know, but yeah, definitely one that I feel like should be a little more seen. The right people saw it, obviously, because everyone leveled up that was involved. But
that's another one of those that was like critically a hit, but it kind of faltered at that point. Like not enough people saw it. Like this should have been a huge hit, and it was in the right, like you said, in the right circles. But as far as like mass audience, like this should have been much more like out there and seen by the general audience because it's a pretty fantastic movie. It's an excellent choice.
Stuff. Thank you, sir.
Put my goddamn list to shame.
What's next for you?
What are we at, 3?
Yes.
My number 3, it's a little generic, but I got to be honest, and it's The Conjuring.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I mean, at this point, they put
Conjuring came out in 2013?
According to the internet.
Wow.
Yeah.
Feels like a longer ago to me.
It does,
for some
doesn't
reason.
it?
Yeah.
I was kind of, I don't know what will be included in your list, but I was kind of toying between The Conjuring and Insidious Chapter 2. And I ultimately ended up going with The Conjuring because, I mean, while there has been a ton of those movies, and you could say that our market is oversaturated with that type of stuff now, it's still a fantastic movie. And James Wan is a goddamn magician. I mean, how impressive is it to put out single-handedly, well, it's not like he'd done everything himself. You know, he had a lot of help, but to be the spearhead between 3 different major franchises. Like, you got Saw, Insidious, and The Conjuring. Like, that's insanely impressive. And especially with this, because this was, I mean, everybody was looking at him because he did Saw, and it blew him and Lee Winnell up. And then they did Dead Silence, and it shot them down. And then they did Death Sentence, which is a fantastic revenge film, but still did nothing. And then they decided to kind of simplify things. They do Insidious and blow back up. And then it's almost like that sophomore slump in, you know, a remake of it. It's like, what is he going to do next? And he comes out with The Conjuring.
Right.
Well, I guess he did part 2 of Insidious first, but right around the same time Conjuring, because these came out the same year. And it just exploded after that. And I think it's a really well done haunted house movie. Because haunted house movies aren't my favorite subgenre, but if you do it well like this, I think, you know, that it works out really well. I thought it was a really good movie.
He does a lot of what I would call like bread and butter type stuff, where it's
Yes.
like the foundation, the gateway horror for a lot of people.
For
and
sure.
Crossover where, like, you know, your mom or dad might have sat and watched that.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Sort of, it's not just for horror aficionados.
Yeah.
So
It's kind of like that. It has a mass appeal to it.
Definitely.
Without, I feel like, watering down the art and to it. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, this isn't just a paint by numbers like haunted house movie. He does something really well and really effective, but it also speaks to mass audiences. So if that makes
I totally
sense.
agree. No.
But yeah, so I went with The Conjuring, and I know we're watching fictionalized versions. The real what's their name?
Warrens.
The Warrens. I know in real life they're pieces of shit, but this is a fictionalized version of them, so.
Yeah, I think it's, like, I understand taking the time to sort of, like, you know, it's worth the conversation to analyze those guys. But yeah, I kind of agree that you go into a movie like this just understanding that it's not real. Like what?
Yeah.
What kind of person is walking in going like, this really happened?
Right.
You know, it's just kind of, it's a little odd to me. But I get it. Like they really play up the romantic angle and the star-crossed lovers thing, you know, so interesting pick. I have one that's kind of equally, I think you might think it's kind of obvious. The Babadook.
Was that 2013?
Yeah.
Hi guys, Craig here. The Babadook was not released anywhere in the world until the year 2014. My apologies.
Yeah.
Damn it.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna go back and like actually research this stuff, and we're gonna be like all over the place, especially me. But yeah,
Babadook came out in 2017.
the Babadook, you know, and some of these might be released in 2013, but only available to general audiences in 2014. That type of thing. Because I know I saw that in the theater in 2014. Now that I think about it.
Okay. But I mean, like, I chose. In the last list, I chose Society.
Right.
It had been released in other countries in '89, but you know, so if it was released somewhere, you're good.
It's just the Babadook, assuming that it does qualify as 2013. To me, I wanted to include it just because I remember it got kind of unfairly touted as the most scary movie ever made.
Yeah.
I think they had a quote from William Friedkin.
Right.
Who, you know,
Right,
obviously directed The Exorcist, saying this movie scared me more than any movie I've ever seen and stuff like that. So it got kind of unfairly like I almost picture general audiences going in with arms crossed, going, "This better scare the shit out of me, and if it doesn't, I'm going to be pissed."
I know horror fans went in like that for sure,
and so I think people kind of like naturally went at it with knives out, and it got kind of unfairly dismissed. You know?
Yeah, I feel like that stuff happens a lot, where it's like someone makes this big broad statement, and it's like it's kind of like there's something like that with Jordan Peele, where someone said something like, I forget exactly what they said, but something like he's like the best horror director ever. And then he comments like, please don't fucking do this.
Right.
Because it's like, I don't feel, I'm sure Jennifer Kent and all that is like, don't tell people that. That's not what I was even making. What are you doing?
Well,
so it is such an unfair thing when that gets put on a movie like this. Yeah, you're just damned at that point to fail in most people's eyes.
I just remember seeing it in the theater, not knowing much about it, and just truly being viscerally scared at certain moments in that movie. I understand that as it plays out and as that story unfolds, it kind of becomes something different. But as it's setting up, I was truly like freaked out by
there's
several
some
moments.
Creepy stuff in there for sure.
And I'm someone that like, I remember when I saw Insidious in the theater, the only part that scared me about that movie was the opening credits. When that first word, like that was the only part in the theater I was like, oh, you know, and the rest of it I was just like, oh, this is fine. To me,
really, there's some good jump scares in that movie.
Well, that's the thing is like jump scares work on me and they're totally effective, but I dismiss them pretty quickly. Like I get that there's some talent there and everything, but like they don't sit with me. Whereas like creeping horror is the type of thing that sticks in my head and makes me scared to like look in corners and stuff like that.
I get what you're saying.
That to me.
Insidious was one of those movies that was great to watch with a crowd in the theaters.
Yeah, it's like a roller coaster ride.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I get what you're saying. Yeah, definitely, I agree.
And I do think you might disagree as a parent, but I do feel like...
I totally disagree. No.
I feel like at the time I saw a lot of stuff online and everything where people were kind of upset that the kid was so annoying. And one of the themes of that movie is maybe like regret of being a parent or frustration of being a parent. And I think a lot of people with kids kind of went, fuck you. Like, I don't want to waste my time trying to be made to feel bad for being a parent. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like that was sort of a thing that also got kind of pushed away.
I don't feel like I totally see where they're coming from. Like, being a parent is really rewarding, but it is a super stressful, draining thing it doesn't stop. Like, there is no, well, let me punch out.
Yeah.
I'm done for the day.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, I totally see where the movie is coming from with that kind of like stress and, you know, how selfish kids can be and just how selfish parents can be. Yeah, I totally saw that dynamic, and it's interesting because everybody talks about how annoying that kid is, but he never bothered me watching the movie because it was so clear that this kid was going through shit he didn't have the vocabulary to talk about, and so it's clear he's going through shit. And so he never bothered me in that sense. I was never like, oh, this kid's so annoying. Maybe that helps being a parent and having kids that can be annoying at times, especially when they're that young. That was one of the things that made it stand above so many other movies and made those creepy moments that much creepier because of the stakes of having this lived-in world and these nuanced real characters that feel foundationally sound, you know, if that makes any sense. We know these characters. These are 3D. They're concrete. They're flawed and at times can be dangerous, but they're honest. And I feel like that gives an impact to whenever it does get scary, that it scares us more. And I think that's what helps. It helps with those moments to make them more than what they maybe would be if we didn't care at all about the characters.
No, well said. But yeah, I just thought it was kind of worth. Man, I'm getting paranoid about all these years You know, but I might be off. But anyway, I totally think it's worth putting back in the conversation. By the way, if you want to hear a deep dive on the Babadook from Mr. Craig, we did that on episode 4 of the Half-Assed Horrorcast. So way back in the day, several years ago. So,
and also, if you good people out there have not seen Jennifer Kent's The Nightingale, watch that shit. I feel like that's one that is super overlooked, and it is a powerful, really well done movie.
Well, in her episode of Curiosity, what is it? Guillermo del Toro's
Cabinet of Curiosities.
Yeah, she has an episode on in that series, and it's great.
Really,
it's really well done, and it stars the Babadook star.
Oh, really?
She's in it, and
cool.
Andrew Lincoln from Walking Dead is the co-star. They're both great in it.
Does he hold a 357 in?
No, he's like a very sheepish, bookish guy or whatever. It's like a nice.
How about
break?
Does he hold up whiteboard cards with?
Oh, no.
Okay.
He does get in her face, and he's like, Carl! He does do that.
My number 2, it's gotta happen. It's the Evil Dead remake.
There was something in the woods.
Everything's gonna be fine. Everything's gonna be fine. I don't know if you'd noticed this, but everything's been getting worse. Every second. If we don't do something, we're all gonna be dead!
We're gonna get you.
Does that sound fine?
Rated R.
That was I remember that was in a lot of like top, like, you know, of the year that year. Made the top.
Yeah, it was one that probably, it didn't have any business being good. It was a remake by a first-time director, basically, of such a classic movie. One in which had the same sole director to all of the franchise. It was like, I don't know about this, but man, Fetty brought his A game on that and got such a good. This movie is what introduced me to Jane Levi. I don't know how to pronounce her last name, but she's Mia or Maya, whatever the main character's name is. She is such a powerhouse of an actor, and she gives a insane performance in this movie. Everybody's really good, and the effects are on point.
Yeah, I remember that too.
Man, it's
a lot of visceral like moments too, where you're like, oh my god, the violence.
It's a lot of those. It reminds me of, like, even though this is more outlandish and otherworldly, the gore is so centered and grounded to earth. It reminds me of like the violence and gore in something like Green Room.
I can see that. Yeah.
Like you feel the pain in this. You feel someone cutting their arm off, and it's a gnarly movie. And come on, any movie that literally ends with a demon getting face fucked by a chainsaw while literal blood rains down on them, that's got to go on my list.
What? It's a great example of, like, if you're going to remake one of these movies, you have to make it your own. You can't try, like, because I could see where someone that wasn't really sure-footed would be trying to get a comedic actor to play an Ash type character and just try to remake the alchemy of the originals, and you're never going to be able to do that.
No.
I mean, there's no one that can do that right now. So I think they did a wonderful job of kind of taking a premise and, reinventing it, know, quintessential remake style. I mean, it's almost like on par with, like, The Blob and The Fly getting remade in the 80s of these classic 50s.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. That's a perfect comparison. Yes.
Great choice, and honestly, it slipped my mind. So it might have actually entered my top five if I had been more thoughtful. It's not like I didn't throw this together just by Googling
like
the year. That's why I'm kind of worried about some of these choices. Number 2 for me would be Oculus.
See the mirror hanging there. Oculus of glass, I stare. I can feel you staring back. Huh? A window, portal, darkened door. My soul you'll hold forevermore.
I have seen the devil. He hears me.
Oculus, April 11th, rated R.
Oh, that's a good one.
Which, again, now I'm questioning. It is listed as 2013. I know I saw that in the theater in 2014. I'm positive.
Your memory is correct, past Craig. Indeed, Oculus did not get a theatrical release anywhere until April of 2014, although it did premiere at a film festival in 2013.
I'm positive.
Oh, shit.
So there might be some discrepancies here. But anyway, it's the first time I noticed Mike Flanagan.
For
first
sure.
time he was on my map. And didn't know anything about that movie. Thought it was going to be kind of a typical, no offense, like a Conjuring, like haunted house movie.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
And was totally turned on my head with how thoughtful it was and the weird different perspectives of the storytelling. And I just knew that the filmmaker was really special, and it totally played out that way. I mean, pretty much everything he's done since has been...
You were way off. I don't even know who that dude is.
It's been worth watching, at least. So it's kind of cool. And every now and then I'll bump into someone that hasn't seen it that likes Flanagan and has seen his other films. So I always try to recommend
if you for
that
some
one.
reason only know Flanagan from his Netflix stuff, go back and check out his movies. Oculus and Ouija Origin of Evil, which had no business being good.
Yeah.
And it's really great. And then, like, it's good. Like, there's no real substance to it. I mean, you care about the characters and everything, but it is just a fun, like, haunted type, like, possession movie.
Yeah.
But it's really a lot of fun and has a bunch, at least two people from Haunting of Hill House in it. You got, is it Reese, sir? What's her other name? I think she was in Oculus too. And then she plays, I forget her name, but it's her and then the little girl, Lulu Wilson or something like that.
Right.
She's in it too. But yeah, in true Flanagan form, he brings a lot of people that he's worked with before. And I haven't seen Absentia yet, which is like his first movie.
It's like very indie. I've seen it. Yeah.
Have you?
Yeah.
I even own the DVD, but I've never watched it. And then I haven't seen his Butterfly. What's his?
Oh, I don't think I've seen that either.
I forget what it's called now. But it's one that wasn't available in the U.S. for a while, and then Netflix got it, and I just hadn't got around to watching it. But anyways, yeah, Oculus is a good choice. Did you ever watch the short film that he made?
No.
It's interesting. It feels very different in a lot of ways than the movie. I mean, it was a cool concept though, but it's all like set in one room, in one kind of like white room, with this dude with the mirror in front of him and him recording himself, and like just the whole concept of this being a haunted mirror and all that. It's pretty interesting. It was a super no budget short film that he made, I guess, like as a proof of concept type thing. And so, and it was made in like the early 2000s. So it doesn't look the best or anything like that, but it was a cool concept, and you could see where he's coming from with the idea of the movie. So
it's cool. I know he's someone that
I think I still have. I have the DVD of that too. Yeah.
Well, what's your number one?
My number one is Blue Ruin, baby.
Ah.
I know this is personal. That's how you'll fail.
I'd forgive you if you were crazy. But you're not. You're weak.
That was actually going to be an honorable mention for me.
Really?
Yeah. But mostly because I didn't know if it qualified.
Yeah, it's one of those
horror.
that are iffy.
It's a little tough.
It's iffy to include it in horror, but I have to be true and honest to myself, and so I put it in horror.
Oh, I love Blue Ruin.
Yeah.
That's actually, I have it noted here, episode 3 of the Half-Ass Horror Cast. It was a movie my wife discovered.
I remember y'all doing that episode too.
Yeah, I love that movie. Tell us about it.
It's a fantastic one about this kind of aimless dude who, I guess, late 30s type of thing, who's basically living out of his car, finds out that the person that killed is it both his or just his dad?
I thought it was just one parent.
Yeah, I think it was just his dad. Yeah. The guy that killed his dad is getting out of prison. And so he decides it's time to pack his things back and head home and get some good old-fashioned revenge. And then it just kind of goes off the rails from there. You have this kind of schlubby getting to the precipice of middle-aged dude who has no sort of like kick or drive in life to do much of anything, and him trying to be, Jean-Claude Van Damme or something.
Yeah, it's Macon Blair too, right?
Yeah. And just how he kind of fumbles everything after that. But it's got some, speaking of Green Room, it's from the same director, so
the Jeremy
Saulnier, however you pronounce it. Yeah, it's him behind the helm, and again has one of those impacts of like the violence is you feel it. There's weight to it, and it's just this really simple but interesting story and like a character-driven movie about this character and just grief and anger and how unfair life can be at times and how we can make matters worse for ourselves by, not breathing and taking some time to think things out. And is this something I should be doing on both sides of it? And plus we get Buzz from Home Alone in it. So it's always nice. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. My favorite scene, all the stuff you're talking about is so point on, and the violence is, is so realistic and it's just understated, but it has one of the funniest comedic beats. I feel like any movie where Macon Blair's character is injured pretty badly. He does the classic thing, because you're describing it to a T, where he's almost like an action star, but he's a regular person. Yeah. Like he's kind of doing action star things, but he's a regular dude. And he gets injured badly. He does the quintessential thing where he goes to a drugstore, gets like all these supplies to like patch up his wound, and it shows him go into like a bathroom. And he looks at the wound, he looks at his supplies, and he's like, no. And it just cuts to him like in a doctor's office. Yeah. Like when he went to like actual, get actual medical attention. Yeah. It's just a great comedic beat. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great moment. And it speaks to that this guy is trying to be a movie hero, but he's unfortunately in real life. So, and he just can't be. I could totally see this not being horror, but
it's very dark though. I could see where it would qualify. Obviously we had it on Half-Ass Horrorcast, so it
fits in that realm of genre and like almost exploitation and stuff that just touches enough on horror that I feel comfortable including it. What's your number one, sir?
Well, that's the thing is I'm almost positive I've messed up this list. This is going to be a funny video for you.
2014?
Because like everything I'm naming, I bet came out in festivals and stuff in 2013 and didn't come out for general release until 2014.
Yeah.
Because
if we ever do 2014, you're fucked.
I know. I'll have to this is my fault, listeners. I'm sorry. I didn't do the appropriate amount of research for the year 2013. I basically Googled it, saw all these movies are like, well, fuck yeah, these are going to be my top 5. It didn't kind of stop to think and go, hold on. I saw half of these movies in the theater in 2014.
Yeah.
Because that's literally like, as I'm going down this list, I'm like, I saw this in 2014, like in the theater.
What's your number one of 2013?
You might be able to guess it at this point. It Follows. But see, I think I've hit that thing where it wasn't in general release until 2014.
Maybe.
Hello, listeners. Craig back again. It Follows was not released anywhere in the world until 2014. It was not in general release in the United States until 2015.
But I'll just very quickly just say, it's a movie that's always sat with me. The soundtrack, the weird out of time element of it, where it kind of feels like it could be modern, like in 2014. It kind of feels like it could almost be the 80s.
Feels like it could be 2013.
So, I mean, it's just kind of like another one of those really special movies, kind of like The Babadook, that I feel like a lot of normies saw it and went, this isn't scary.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But if you're a lover of horror and you're a lover of like cinema and storytelling, you can see where it's like a special movie. And I love, now it's become a little more cliche, but I love the understated performances of the kids in the movie. Like they seem like real teenagers. Mm-hmm. They don't seem like Hollywood teenagers that I think a lot of movies are populated by.
Right.
Like Scream. The most recent one,
2022.
Yes.
I gotta be honest with It Follows. I've never seen it.
What? Really?
Yeah,
I saw that in the theater
in 2013.
Yes, the last day of 2013.
Yes.
No, I saw that in the theater, and they actually had. I want to say it was the Belcourt, which is like a local art house theater here in Nashville. And they had like some kind of expert on like transmissible diseases.
Really?
Was there to do kind of like a Q&A afterwards that kind of like tied in with the movie, because that's, obviously the hook of the movie is that this demon or this entity is passed through sexual contact or whatever. So yeah, I have like vivid memories of seeing it in the theater and people, and like some of the scares, like the audience reacting to it, and sort of, definitely highly recommend if you haven't caught it.
Yeah, it's one of those that just has been a blind spot. I don't know why I never ended up watching it, but it's just one of those that kind of bypassed me, and I just haven't went around back to it.
Well, you'll definitely see how the score and like some of the basic principles of the movie have influenced a lot of movies going forward. I think it's definitely, in the back of a lot of people's heads that are making movies now. So in the comments, feel free to dispute the years in which my selections were released, because I think I may have flubbed it a couple times there at least. So I apologize to the year 2013, and I apologize to you, Adam, because you brought that year to us. But it is what it is.
I don't give a shit either way. It's fine with me.
Well,
I just can't wait to do 2014.
Oh, I know. Mine's just going to be like, it's going to be movies from 2015. There you go. Well, what are some of your favorite movies from 2013?
Yes. And are they from 2013? No. Yeah, what are some of y'all's favorites? Let us know. Get interactive with us. Dispute ours. If you think Blue Ruin can never ever be considered horror, let us know.
It's definitely a really good movie.
Yep. So shut the fuck up.
Oh.
No, I'm just kidding. Talk to us. We're so lonely.
Well, that's got it for us today. Shout out to all of our lovely listeners / viewers. We appreciate you.
We love your faces.
Oh, until next time.
And your butts.
Oh,
what?
No.
Sorry. Go ahead.
I'll cut that. Until next time.
Don't cut that. Y'all come back now, you hear?
No.
What's that thing over there? Oh, I don't know. Is it dangerous? I don't think so. Is it going to come after us? No. Is it different than us? Yeah. Let's fucking kill it.